Hello, Canada Files viewers. This is Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files, here for episode 18 of Canada and Palestine, the War on Zionism, with the regular co-host, Laith Marouf of Free Palestine TV. Laith, as always, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Aidan.
All right, Laith, we have a world of things to talk about today. Let's start with the martyr, Hassan Nasrallah. He was assassinated by Israel, and this is a real tragedy, but not the end. So, Laith, can you take us through this, again, very tragic situation?
Yes, the Israelis dropped 85 1-ton to 5-ton bombs on one location in the southern suburb of Beirut, colloquially known as Al-Dahi, and they took out at least 10 buildings in the process of doing so. Everybody and everything that was in those buildings was vaporized, so we can't even know how many martyrs died in this assassination of martyr Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. And the I went and saw the location where the attack happened,
It's
and
with Mohammed Randi, yes.
yeah, and I mean, this is something that we didn't show, obviously, in the video that we released that people can find on freepalestine.video on our platforms. But the destruction, the depth of the hole is, I've never seen something like this. I think it was like 40 meters deep at least, if not 50 meters deep. So these are the biggest bombs that are in the American arsenal that are not nuclear warheads that were used there. And this is why it shook the whole city. And the assassination was a sad moment for all the axis of resistance. But given that historically assassinations of leaders in established movements like Hezbollah are ineffective and, in fact, create a problem for the terrorist force that does the assassination, like the Israelis, because it creates a lot of unknowns. We don't know the new leadership, how they respond. So the Israelis cannot predict a similar way that they would have predicted how Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah responds to their crimes in Lebanon. And we know also that according to the foreign affairs minister of Lebanon, that hours before the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, that the Americans said the Israelis accepted a ceasefire, a timed ceasefire coordinated between the front in Gaza and the front in Lebanon, and that Hezbollah and Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah specifically agreed to that. See, this is what all Hezbollah has been asking for since October 8th last year, is to end the genocide in Palestine, in Gaza. And that after the negotiation team of the United States left, hours later was the assassination. So we know that it may have been kind of a trap almost, these negotiations and the supposed American and Israeli agreement to a ceasefire probably prompted the movement of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the teams around him who were, preparing for this ceasefire. So the security probably was needed to be relaxed in order for the leadership to announce this ceasefire. So the negotiations led by the United States were the actual trap that led to the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and thus the US is directly implicated not only with the weapons, but with this ruse for the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah.
All right, Laith. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, there was also the ruse of negotiations with the American murder of Soleimani. So there's obviously precedent here for such machinations by the Americans. But we've seen strong retaliation by Iran. They launched hundreds of ballistic hypersonic missiles into military and intelligence targets in Israel in retaliation for the assassinations of Nasrallah and Haniyeh while he was in Iran. So this Tel Nov air base, you posted about it on Free Palestine TV. Can you talk to people about the extent of the damage that these strikes did?
Yes, so the Tel Nov air base is the most important air base within the Israeli Air Force system. They have three main bases, and this is the number one. It is also the most protected location on the planet. There's all the Western systems that are there, including THAADs by the United States. It is also a location that is in the desert, so it's very easy to, with radar systems in a situation like that, to notice things coming. It's not like a base, let's say, in a valley, and then suddenly a missile appears from behind a mountain that the radar couldn't cover. So from the video that you can see that we shared on Free Palestine TV, you can count around 40 missiles hitting the base. And for the first time since the genocide in Gaza began, satellite company, one of the satellite companies, image companies, released the satellite images of this location. And this is remarkable because, remember, it's been now a year that Hezbollah and the Palestinian resistance and others have been bombarding the Zionist colony, and not once have we seen before a satellite image of damage being released. So from the satellite image released, there's at least 37 craters in this one base, and the charred remains on the asphalt and the tarmac, clear shadows of tens of Israeli aircrafts. And this includes the hangars for the F-35s and others. And we have, been getting some leaks from within Israel that at least 20 F-35s were destroyed. And remember, each one of those F-35s is worth billions of dollars. And they are responsible for carrying the biggest load bombs, like the 5,000 pound bombs that were dropped on the Dahi. And these are huge achievements. We've seen already, and given that the Iranians also targeted the other air bases, the major Mossad and Israeli intelligence service, military intelligence services, as well as the major gatherings and deployment locations of Israeli mechanized forces inside Gaza and in the Golan Heights and on the border with Lebanon, we must then conclude from just this one image that we see from the satellites that actually all those other targets were also destroyed. And we saw the huge celebrations inside Gaza when the forces deployed on the Nusayrat axis and the Netzarim axis were destroyed by Iranian hypersonic missiles. And since that night, there was a huge decrease in the use of the Israeli Air Force of their jets in bombardment of both Lebanon and Gaza. There's an increased use of drones. And for the first time, we've been seeing over the last 24 hours, 48 hours now, the Israelis using their naval ships in the Mediterranean to bombard Beirut and Al-Dahi, the southern suburb, from their ships. So that shows you how much their air capabilities have been degraded. And that was in just an example of what Iran can do. In a full-out war, there will be nothing standing of the Israeli military might within minutes of launching from Iran.
All right, Laith. So there's two more things. Speaking of the situation, first of all, you have the attempted ground invasion of Lebanon by the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, this has been repulsed to a strong degree by Hezbollah. Is that correct?
Yes, there's not been one successful incursion attempt. It's been now 5 days that they're trying to enter the frontline villages in Lebanon that are right on the border with occupied Palestine. Some of them, the wall, apartheid wall that separates is built into the houses. So, and these are small villages, 200, 300 homes. And it's 5 days now, the Israeli special forces, the Golani and the Givati brigades, attempting to enter these villages. And they have been repelled time and after time after time with huge losses. In one battle in Adaise 2 days ago, the Israelis lost at least 30 officers and soldiers in this one battle, tens of tanks and armored vehicles, and they had to retreat. So, and then that was the Givati brigade, and their leadership got decapitated. And then the Israelis threw in the Golani brigade, and their leadership also got decapitated. So the two major special forces within the Israeli military are now being led by 22-year-old officers. They lost all their seasoned officers in that battle. Today, right now, as we're recording this, there's the fifth attempt to enter Yaron, right on the border, and this village is composed of 200 homes, a third of which were destroyed before even the ground invasion began. And since in the last 5 days, the Israelis conducted 650 air raids on this village, and they threw at it 3 full brigades, meaning 15,000 Israeli soldiers with all their armaments and their air cover, Apaches and drones and what have you. And they have yet to be able to enter 100 meters into the village. So where the Zionists are getting resoundingly whipped on the front lines of South Lebanon, and the warriors of Hezbollah are showing us legendary fighting that has not been seen even in the battlefield of Gaza.
All right, Laith. Now, the one more thing I did want to mention on the international front is this potential situation with Syria, Russia, and Israel. There's reported airstrikes near or in a Russian base in Syria. Of course, the Russians were invited into Syria to help them deal with the Western proxy Wahhabi terrorists that came in the early 2010s. So, what is your knowledge on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Zionists are totally insane right now. And that's the only thing that they're trying to portray to the people. If you notice, they are now actually, the majority of their propaganda is dedicated to tell everybody in the world that they are insane wild dog that will do anything, including nuclear holocaust. And they're threatening Iran with attacking its nuclear facilities, and they're threatening that if Iran retaliates, they'll use nukes. Okay, so this is their only last resort. And clearly, the only way to deal with somebody who's bluffing to create because it's their only defense right now, is to call their bluff and to say, we are willing actually to also take the world into a nuclear holocaust, no problem. But we will make sure that you will be the one that never survives this nuclear holocaust. Not one of you will ever survive that. This is what the axis of resistance is offering. Okay, and so we look at Russia, where it is, the locations that were hit around Tartus, where major ground forces of Russia are located in Syria, and in Latakia, the major naval and airfields of Russia are. For the Israelis to start firing right around them, they are trying to say to Russia, you cannot intervene in the situation where the US will come into the war. Okay. And the US will have to intervene in this war, as we were discussing the collapse of the Israeli forces on the front line here in Lebanon. By the way, there's 1,500 Israeli soldiers deserted from the front line right now that nobody knows where they are. They ran away. What they're trying to do is threaten Russia. And we saw for the first time some new air defenses being used in Syria during this attack by the Israelis. And that led to the shooting down of almost all of the missiles and the chasing of the Israeli jets over the East Mediterranean and over Lebanese airspace. So either that the Russians allowed Syria to use the S-300 that it was delivered years ago that it then and still have not been allowed to use, and or Syria activated some of the new Iranian air defenses that they were handed, and or actually Russia engaged those targets in the sky. We don't know. We don't need to know, actually, even, because what we need to know is the outcome of this action. The outcome of this action is unprecedented, chasing of Israeli air force in those airspaces by weapons that could take them down, and most probably were purposefully didn't shoot them down, because if those jets were shot down, they would have fallen over Lebanon or Syria and or in the middle of the sea, and there is no escape for those pilots, and then we'd be in a situation that is even more drastic in terms of confrontation. Last time the Syrian air defenses downed an Israeli jet was in 2015 or 2016, and it was using modernized S-200s that without the authorization of Russia. It was Syrian scientists that modified the S-200 to be as effective as something like the S-300, and those jets were downed over occupied Palestine. And so again, this is when we talk about the situation with Russia, all of this comes into play.
Now, before we shift into the Canadian element of things, I just want to acknowledge that, from what I understand, there's more than 1 million Lebanese internally displaced. And they bombed, if I remember correctly, the Zionists, they bombed a corridor to Syria, correct?
Yes, the major border crossing in the Masna area, the highway that takes you from Beirut to Damascus, it was the major highway was hit in the no man's land between Syria and Lebanon after you cross the custom. And there was a huge crater. They, for some reason, decided to use some bunker busters on this highway, so to make it impossible to fix up anytime soon. The crater is huge. People are having to, descend from cars and walk in the wilderness to get to the other side where another car can take them. And much of the other border crossings have been attacked multiple times also. So it's not only the major border crossing, it's all the border crossings period. And the crews that for construction to fix, and the emergency crews that were trying to get injured or so on in many of these crossings were targeted, and they want to kind of entrap the Lebanese people to have these fish in a barrel shooting situations that they're doing in Gaza. They want to do that to the Lebanese people, and the West is enabling them. One thing before we go to the Canadian part of our discussion, I want to note that in the last 24 hours, the United States said that they approve basically of Iran being attacked by Israel. We heard Donald Trump say that Israel should target Iran's nuclear facilities. And it's clear that all the establishment in the US are going to allow Netanyahu to do whatever he wants to. And therefore, everybody should be ready that the attack on Iran is going to come in the next 24, 48 hours. It's not going to be that long. It's going to come soon. And when it happens, no matter what it is, you will see the total destruction of oil facilities in the region that are controlled by the United States. You'll see the total destruction of American bases in the region, and we will see the total destruction of Israeli infrastructure, not only military, civilian infrastructure like their ports, their oil and gas fields, their highways, their energy factories. All of that will be hit, and then we will be in World War III. Because once that happens, and the United States attempts to directly, openly attack Iran, because there is no such thing as Israel. Israel is not the one that's bombarding Yemen. It's American jets. Israel is not the one bombarding Beirut with 85 bunker buster bombs. The Israelis don't even have enough jets to carry that much armament in one raid. They had to have direct involvement of the American forces. And up until now, the American forces are lying and hiding and claiming that it's all Israel. Israel is a defeated little colony. It doesn't have any power. And therefore, those who will attack Iran right now are going to be the United States. Once the oil and gas and everything is gone in the region, we're going to be in a world war. Russia is not going to be sitting on the side. China is not going to be sitting on the side. The oil prices are already right now at reaching highs that haven't been heard about in decades, and that's without any of the war starting.
All right, Laith, I keep saying one last thing, but one last thing has to be mentioned because this chaos of the week. They're also trying to do, the US is trying to do regime change in Lebanon to take advantage of their and the Israel's assassination of Nasrallah. Just showcase the utter cynicism of the American regime and its Zionist proxy. So now shifting into the Canada news, we have something that won't shock anybody in this audience or either of us, Laith. You have the Foreign Minister Jolie, you had PM Trudeau called Nasrallah and Hezbollah terrorists. They condemned Iran's strikes on Israel, and they talked about their fake desire for some ceasefire, right? The bait that they used to murder Nasrallah, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a complete farce, and nobody should take it seriously. Nobody should take it seriously. And you have like this kangaroo court politics in Canada. Polyev, the opposition leader of the Conservatives, is cheering, whooping up in the sky about the assassination of Nasrallah. So the opposition is no better. In Canada, it's a full court disaster. Let's leave that there. And let's talk about something that we actually talked about before. This joke of an effort by Canada's government claiming that it's really trying to get Canadians out of Lebanon. They're talking about maybe using military jets, maybe doing this, maybe doing that. Maybe they can get people on a list. Maybe the people then all of a sudden have to go through a travel agent. Like what a joke it is, right? They're leaving Canadians to die in Lebanon.
Yes, yes, and you know, we remember the last time an Israeli war on Lebanon in 2006. You know, I was one of the people that were organizing in Canada all the demonstrations and the support for the Lebanese Canadians. And we remember the fascist Prime Minister Harper at the time, after Canada had to evacuate around 40 or 50,000 dual citizens and or Canadian foreign workers that are here. uh, Harper passed a law with the fascist parliament in Canada that said that next time there will be a war in Lebanon, that the Canadian government will not evacuate and or save or help those inside Lebanon that are citizens of the state in Canada. So that was an exception made, obviously, because of the fascism, the racism, the white supremacy, the support of Jewish white supremacy and Zionism that exists within the elite in Canada, no matter what their political and or religious background is. And of course, in comparison, Trudeau and the plastic foreign minister, plastic surgery foreign minister, they wouldn't dare say this about Israeli dual citizens or Canadians inside Israel. They will evacuate them with their own hands, probably. They'll even kiss their feet, probably, when they're leaving and arriving in Canada. So that's the truth. The truth is you have a fascist colonial state with elite that are Christian, secular, and Jewish white supremacists that hate every Palestinian, Lebanese, Arab, and Muslim and rejoice to see their blood and rejoice for the killing of children from our region. So the Canadian public is, in the end, responsible for those who claim to be their representatives. And I hope that as we are now on the precipice of 1 year since the genocide in Gaza began, October 7th is on a Monday, that whatever activism, demonstrations, what have you, organizing in Canada that my diaspora communities and those who support us are taking will move to a more serious stage, not this groveling liberal way of, hoping to make change.
Yeah, no, and I'm on the same page as you. Laith, you probably saw in Martad's recent article talking about the death threats and the pagers from the Kahanists in Canada, that point was made, and I explicitly made sure that point was made as editor-in-chief because it had to be made. You're gonna see some desperate parts of the diaspora community that are gonna escalate protest, but you have a problem right now where there's a lot of people protesting for their conscience. They don't want Canada to do it to Palestine, but if Canada stopped doing it to Palestine, but the Zionists kept going, they wouldn't do anything, right? And that's where we're at a real problem, and there needs to be serious reflection among the Palestine movement in Canada. Basically, are you an actual ally to the global south? Are you an actual ally to Palestine? Or are you just a selfish person who wants their conscience cleared? Have their country do a little less? Who are you exactly? Um, and speaking about
I mean,
protests,
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead, go, go
Go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
No, no, you go ahead.
No, you were going to talk about the protest, and
Uh,
maybe I was going to talk about the same thing. So go ahead.
So there's two things. The Toronto police, the Zionist Miron Demkiw is worried about increased protests. You had Olivia Chow, the Toronto mayor, with some nonsense, garbled halfway stuff. Oh, Hamas massacre, da 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 da. But of course, the Zionists, if they don't get, Zionists turn on Housefather. If you're not like I am Hitler, please murder the Palestinians. The Zionists hate your ass. So you have that happening. But then you also have in Montreal, your old stomping grounds, you had an injunction granted by Quebec Superior Court Judge Daniel Urbas. It's going to last 10 days, and it's preventing SPHR, Solidarity for Palestinian Human Rights Concordia, Independent Jewish Voices and others from blocking any of the university's entrance and exits, intimidating any staff or student as they enter, and from showing up on campus to disrupt any classes. So you can see like the state beginning to like move towards just openly saying you cannot protest, right? And let's not pretend that this isn't unprecedented in the West. Look at what France is doing. Look at what Germany is doing, right? So let's not give any idealized thing, but you can see protests coming. You can see the Zionists beginning to soil themselves with fear about what protests could be coming. But they must come, right? They must come.
Yes, I mean, I was just watching a similar situation in Australia today. They're having their big demo. And for a week, the Zionists and all their lapdog politicians in Australia were yapping about social cohesion, social cohesion, social cohesion. And this is what's happening also now. We can see it in the West, all of the West. They're using now this strategy. Look, Palestinians and their demonstrations, they're stressing the social cohesion of our society. We must stop them. So this is coming. And I can tell you, as this war expands and the Zionists and the West bombard Lebanon directly, the Lebanese population in Canada and in Australia are the largest segment of the Arabic diaspora. And believe me, they will not be as liberal in their activities once this genocide expands on a mass scale in Lebanon. And so the West knows that there will be disruptions in the streets, there'll be riots, there'll be confrontations in the streets of the West once this war becomes much more violent, and there will be, definitely a possibility that we will see martial law implemented in many countries, and the encampments, internment camps for Palestinian, Arab, Muslim communities and those who stand in support of their liberation. Because again, we go back to that word of social cohesion. They will use this issue to basically create a Nazi, fully Nazi, Zionist governance structure in the West. And our communities should be prepared before they become a helpless victim interned in these camps.
Now, something I want to speak to, I was going to write an article about this first, but I unfortunately don't have time. Look, there's two things. First of all, people have to start to grasp something. Mayor Weinstein, that JDL thug, he runs Israel Now as that front for it, for the Canada chapter of the JDL. Mayor Weinstein has a far better idea of what Canada is and what Canada stands for than the average Palestine protester. Mayor Weinstein is a piggish, murderous colonist. That is what he is. Decisively, clearly, unapologetically. He is a bastard Kahanist, right? That's what he is. But that's what the Canadian state is and has always been. We were founded as a colony. We engaged in, from our beginning of our history, in mass land theft. We murdered Indigenous people. We made treaties, like ceasefires that they're making now. We made treaties with Indigenous nations and then disregarded them. We manipulated them. And we established the reservations. We established these closed areas, separate the Indigenous nations, Indigenous peoples from themselves, like they try to do with Palestine, right? And this escalates and keeps going and keeps going, keeps going. Residential schools, the concept of kill the Indian in him, save the man, right? So you come to this present day, nothing changed. Nothing's changed. It's different form, different methodology. But Mayor Weinstein has a far better idea of what Canada stands for than the average pro-Palestine protester. And they need to face that. Because that's where you're going to see long-term change, is when people realize that. When they realize you need to kill the colonist in them and to save the man, that's when you're going to see a change, right? That's when you're
To
going to see
save humanity, not only the man, to save humanity. We have
Yeah, I was just
to
imitating the phrase for the
yeah.
past 12.
Yes, yes. I know. and he did good there. And I think that I'm gonna end it on a funny note here. Um, when I started Free Palestine TV, and I wanted to buy a website, I looked at freepalestine.tv, and it was $6,000 because Tuvalu, that owns that little island that owns the .tv URL, is now its whole economy is on selling the .tv. Anyways, so I couldn't afford it. Obviously, this is a volunteer station and community based and so on. So I bought the Free Palestine video for like $100 or something. A week ago, somebody contacted me saying, "Hey, I tried going to your website, freepalestine.tv, and I got hacked." I was like, "What?" So I go and I check it out, and somebody in Toronto, basically the JDL of Mir Weinstein, because I looked into the who and whatever and tracked it all, the IP address and everything. One of the members of the Jewish Defense League, the fascist in Toronto, bought the website freepalestine.tv, paid $6,000 for it to try to hack people when they go to the website and redirect them away from our website, freepalestine.video. Please do not go to freepalestine.tv. It is a virus-ridden website. Do not download that QR code that Mir Weinstein and his lapdogs and hyenas have put there. And come to our website, freepalestine.video. Please donate. We're doing a lot of great work. And God damn, there's nobody more, vicious and thuggish and poisonous on this planet as Zionist. And the only thing that made me laugh about all of this is our simple resistance as Palestinians with the simplest tools that we have at the smallest budgets are causing freaks like Mir Weinstein to drop $6,000 on a URL name and the United States and the West to drop F-35 billion-dollar aircrafts to fight our warriors on the ground with the most basic weapons.
All right, Laith, let's leave it there. So, Canada's viewers, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this episode. If you appreciate the journalism and analysis done in this show, you should go and donate to both the Canada and Free Palestine TV. Remember to go to freepalestine.video. Just make sure you remember that. And we are calling it quits for this episode. Thank you, Laith. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.